And we're recording. Okay, so
Sweet.
I have with me today a fun special guest, Stephen Yavorski. He
Yep.
is a Jersey-based artist who has shown in Ray's Contemporary, Swain, and Main Street galleries, and the Salmagundi Club, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, Salmagundi.
Salmagundi, and as well has been highlighted more than once by the Art Renewal Center, and that's exciting. So his work is about a number of things: religion and spirituality, and exploring the emotions of self-reflective life. Which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk to you. So the first time I found out about you was 2011, the Capturing
Holy shit.
Realism show. Yeah, that was the first time I saw your work, and so yeah. Oh, I also wanted to say you're also a teacher, and
Yeah.
and where do you teach at?
I teach a couple different places. Like today I was teaching at Ducray School of Art in Plainfield, and then I also have classes at the Visual Arts Center. And I'm also looking at hopefully Kubert and Kubert School in Dover, New Jersey, and also there's a place in Bedminster that I have to check out soon too.
Nice.
But
Nice.
yeah, mostly those two places. I also do like private stuff too, but
Yeah. Yeah, private stuff is always a good gig if you can get it.
it's good
Yeah.
also because you get to focus more on the student. They get way more out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can come to get to know their personal likes and dislikes and bad habits and whatnot. So
Yeah.
so aside from going back even before 2011, what made you want to get into art? Oh, you know what I was gonna say too. I think you like pizza more than I do, which
Well, I
is
like pizza at an unhealthy percentage. Not just unhealthy physically, but mentally.
mentally.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an unhealthy obsession mentally. Uh,
It's like the ultimate food. It's like
well, I mean, it's not just the ultimate food. I I got into a conversation with somebody at a party maybe about a year ago, and basically I got so excited about pizza that I started turning it into a religion, where I eventually said at the end, "Come eat. This is my pizza." But actually, don't eat my pizza because I don't share my pizza. Get away from it now. And so that was my pizza religion, the pizzaism.
well, I'm in. Sign me up for that.
There's no rules, no regulations. You can put whatever you want on it. I'm not a purist.
Nice.
Want to put pineapple on a pizza? Hey, put pineapple on your pizza. I'm not against it. Pizza is about love. Pizza is about life.
It is. I bet you like the Ninja Turtles because of pizza.
I do. I like Ninja Turtles not just because of pizza, but that is a huge thing about pizza and Ninja Turtles. I like both of them because of many things.
Nice. Okay, so when did you know? When did you have that moment when it was like, I'm gonna do the art thing?
It's kind of hard. I know. The reason I love it so much, I guess I'll start with that. So basically, when I was really little, I loved Bill Nye, the Science Guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Beakman's World, but that was another show that I absolutely loved. All these like science shows growing up was a huge influence to my life, and I really wanted to be an inventor. So like I had like Legos, I had a Erector set. Erector set, by the way, is way better than Legos.
Oh yeah.
So I really wanted to be an inventor, but I really sucked at math. And so that's like a major factor of science is math. And because I couldn't do math, I didn't do well in school, and I kind of like pushed that hope and dream out of the way. And throughout all of school, especially like high school, I was in all the low classes. It was just really brutal. And
Was there something about science specifically, or was it just at the time just science in general?
so I really like creating gadgets and inventions. And I had this idea for this generator thing that would like self-generate, but like now that even with just a slightly more basic knowledge of science, it wouldn't work. But like the idea was basically you would basically just start rotating it, and then it would generate power and kind of amplify the power, and then just start spinning it again. And I remember building this idea in my head and like drawing it out on paper. I had to be younger than 8 or something, and I was like, I want to make this. Like, think of how many people this could help. And that's another thing I really wanted to help people with, like inventions and stuff. But I really had to be better at math, and that was a huge thing. And I really sucked at math. I'm way better at math now because I have an interest in it, and I'm better at learning things when I have an interest. But it isn't after the fact thing that I'm better at math now. But so inventions, I really liked inventing things. I really wanted to help people. And so like for all of high school, I was really bad at it. And but another thing that I really was into was cars and motorcycles and hot rods and all this stuff. And like, I'm a little bit of a gearhead, not as much now as I was, but like I wanted to do airbrush on the motorcycle tanks of like the motorcycles and hot rods and helmets and stuff. Because actually my mom used to do some airbrushing in the basement when we used to live in our old house in Nutley, which is a little more north New Jersey. And
that's a steady hand you got to have, really. I mean, a lot of patience. Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna beat her in the bush. She wasn't the best, but like she really, like, it really piqued my interest, because not only was it cool for somebody to see, oh, this cool little gadgets like spraying out color. And you're like, not only that, art in general, watching a kid watching somebody paint something in general is like super intriguing to them. But on top of that, like, because it was airbrushing, I shouldn't be down in the basement while all those particles were in the air. I couldn't be down there, so that kind of like added a little bit of mysteriousness and intrigue to it, and that really stuck. Like, I didn't think about it all that time, but that really stuck with me as a interest, and I'm like, oh, I really want to airbrush. So I guess, like, flash forward, I started taking private lessons from my middle school art teacher. That my middle school art teacher, Hugh Mahan, I'm friends with him to this day.
Nice.
Like, he's one of the coolest guys on earth. Like,
and that speaks to the power of a good teacher right there.
Yeah, like his class was just so fun. He reminded me. Well, he didn't remind me, but he enforced the idea that art is fun, and that's what it's all about. And so I wanted to do that, and to get into like a college for art. He started talking to me about, you should probably talk to this guy, Lenny. I forget what his last name is now, but this other artist in the high school that I was in, talked to him because he really knows his stuff. And so he happened to be senior year. He happened to be a hall monitor, also not only an art teacher, but he was a hall monitor. And so, needless to say, I had to go to the bathroom a lot. And I would just go to the bathroom. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom, and I would just chat with him like for way too long, and I got like scolded a little bit for it. But one of our talks, he mentioned you should check out this school, Ducray in Plainfield. It's Central Jersey, not too far, and they have a pretty good layout for like placing people for jobs. And I'm like, okay. And he also mentioned there's this airbrush artist that goes by the name Peter Ambush. Look him up. And this guy, Peter Ambush, now I'm friends with him too, but he did stuff for like the scanner, like the paper, the newspaper version of TV Guide, the scanner. Do you have that? I don't know if that's a local thing.
Yeah. I don't think so. It's not sort of.
Okay.
No.
I don't know. It might be just like a local thing, but he did stuff for that. He's like this amazing airbrush artist. I'm like, oh man, I gotta take this class. So I applied. They accepted, but I had to take it was a prerequisite that I took a year of core classes first. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I take a class and I take my first year of classes, and the first class I have is this oil painting class. And I'm like, I don't want to take oil. I just want to airbrush. But I picked up a brush. I had a horrible time. I think you saw the Christmas balls I painted from like 10 years ago. It was a black and white actually achromatic painting of Christmas balls. And it was the shittiest painting ever. And that was my first oil painting. My first oil painting was 2007 in this class. But that whole class, I learned so much, and I fell in love with just narrating a piece. My teacher, Tim Jan, he was the teacher there. He was a great teacher, amazing teacher. He taught me so much.
I was going to ask you about him. He does some wicked work.
He does. He's an amazing artist and an amazing teacher. Yeah, but he inspired me to. That class was a huge inspiration for me, because now all this stuff about like creating just came back to me, and I'm like, maybe I can't create gadgets, but like I can create like narratives and worlds and all this different stuff. And the rest is history. I started studying with him more privately, and then I started studying with Anthony Wachulis, which that's the rest is history. And
go
needless to say, like Anthony's just like a god.
Oh yeah, and I love, he's so accessible online. Like if you have a question, you can just message him, and like within the day he'll give you a response that you don't ever get from anybody else at sort of his level. So I mean, what was that school like? What was it like going with working with Anthony, and what? So Timothy had learned from Wachulis too, right? Or
well, Tim started learning, I guess, the year I started there.
Okay.
So he kind of just powered through real quickly that school. I would say the year I started learning from him privately, which is like the summer after that year, he already had like at least a couple months in, because he was working on I think he was working on scales or something. The really early stuff, scales or spheres. But yeah, I wasn't working with Anthony yet. I started working with him maybe 2012 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So was he sort of like, as far as the technique goes and the approach, was he coming at it from a more classical approach, or was it sort of like, because it doesn't seem like Anthony, or not even Anthony, but like as far as the methods might go, Tim is not your conventional kind of artist. So like, what was that like, being exposed to the method?
Well, learning from Tim was really interesting, because I started off very, very atelier style. Like we would do a lot of still lifes. A lot of that whole summer was a whole intensive from life of a model. And once we began doing the Wachulus kind of method, it kind of stopped. And I kind of liked both for different reasons. So it kind of weird. Once, not weird. I don't want to like say it in a negative way, because it's not. I don't have a negative outlook. It's very different. Their teaching methods are very different. Even though, even when I was learning from Tim privately, which is mostly what do you call it? It was mostly the Wachulus method of learning. It was still a very different method of teaching. He has a very different teaching style. He's much more rigorous with his students, I feel, than Anthony, which I'm not going to say is good or bad on either part. It's just different teaching methods. So the experience was much different. But at the same time, I think learning from Tim really instilled a dedication to like almost stubbornness, but like a good stubbornness, like keep your head just keep going and just stop just getting distracted and stop slacking off kind of deal.
Yeah, it is interesting when you finally like meet a pro. When you finally meet a pro and you're like, and the work ethic. Yeah, I remember that specifically too. It was like, holy crap, like you work nonstop.
Yeah. And I don't want to say like it's not. I don't get like a slacking off kind of feeling from Anthony, but I do want to say that my not slacking off mentality is definitely from Tim, because I got it from him first, and it might have also been reinforced by Anthony, but like the initial just like punch in the gut of just like stop slacking off, like you gotta like work, come on, work. And it's kind of like a drill instructor, but like it's good to have, like you can't just art teachers have, like, not all of them, but like a lot of them that I've run into, they have a kind of like just do as you will, and is too relaxed, and there's no guidance for the students. And something I really hated is when like I was struggling and everybody's kind of just slacking off, and like I'm here to learn. I'm trying to like make this my life. I'm not here for like recreation. I want to learn and make this my life, something I can work from. And some of the teachers that I had to deal with, was like they would just walk around like, hey, good job. And I'm like, no, there's something wrong with my drawing here. Like, what's wrong with my drawing? And where all the other teachers would be like, good job, and just walk on. And I would say like, what's wrong? I'm like, no, it's good. Tim would be like, no, this is wrong. No, do that over. And same thing with Anthony. He would just be like, no, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how you could do it better. Both of those teachers, hugely good. It's been a long day. I can't use adjectives.
We'll say hugely.
Very
let's go
good.
with it, man.
Muy bueno. Muy bueno.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first exposure to like developing a thick skin and teaching you how to separate yourself from the artwork, because that's a huge issue. I'll never forget the first teacher who like metaphorically kicked me in the art nuts with that. It was like, I was like, holy crap, like I can't take it personal. And he was brutal, but in a very kind way. He wasn't mean about it, but when it came to telling you exactly what was wrong, it was held back in no way. And I just remember that, like, my gut just sinking. Like, oh my God, this is what it finally feels like. And then your head is reeling because you were finally told what the hell is wrong and how to fix it. It's a good thing though. It's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't get that in sort of the traditional art school, art college sort of you don't usually find it in
Yeah.
the traditional art college, you know, where everything is like you said, like, oh, just do what you want and be
Just go with your heart.
yeah, and it's just like, but your heart doesn't even know what the hell's going on. So
Yeah. I
um,
feel like a lot of the emphasis is art is subjective, and like, well, maybe a little bit, but like art is very largely objective. Like there's
yeah.
even with abstract art is very objective.
Mm-hmm.
You have like abstract art is less about the subject and more about conveying a feeling maybe, but even with that there are certain methods of communication with imagery, and maybe not imagery in terms of like form, like maybe I'm trying to, maybe with representational art I'm trying to like paint like a bottle or something. Maybe it's not like that with abstract art. Maybe you're just doing general shapes, but even with that you're supposed to be communicating something, like maybe a feeling or something, or just a something in general. You're supposed to be communicating something. And with even abstract art, it's very objective in the way that there is a more optimal way of going about it. And rather than kind of very subjectively saying, oh, all art is great. No, not all art is great. There's better ways of going about it. And there's room for improvement in every single thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's, you know, learning representational art in itself, I found, was even extremely abstract, especially when you break it down into really just being shape management, you know, and it becomes such an abstract thing. I remember, you know, being in the atelier, like focusing on these abstract shapes in a way that like you never think that you would when you think about being an artist. It's a weird sort of disconnect like that, and it's like, oh, that's really just all it is.
Yeah.
So you let me think. How has your since being out of school then, because you kind of learn it how to do things in school, and I feel like school, no matter how much you do, can ever prepare anybody for going out into the real world. There's just so much stuff that you just can't know that you know. So your process, is there any big things, any big changes that happen from leaving school to sort of tackling like your first narrative project, or doing something like, you know, like you were talking about wanting to build worlds and tell stories, you know? So like, what was that like coming fresh out of the school program?
It's weird because like for a long time, this is I feel like this is very similar with a lot of different people that just come out of school. They stay the same for a long time, and it's because they like what they're doing, which isn't bad. It's like you do it because you like it, but or because they're stuck and they don't know how to progress and change. Both are like very, very common, and I really, man, it's tough because it's similar to what I'm doing similar stuff. I feel, I feel like always my intention with my art is just to be very bluntly in your face.
Okay.
But still being vague about it. But I feel like my technique is the biggest thing that has been changing.
Okay. So you pretty much, so you think that you pretty much, you learned the process of sort of how to put something like that together, like one of your pieces that you would do now. You got a good idea of that sort of process while you were learning, while you were in school?
Yeah, that goes back to Tim, because he was really good at making a narrative.
Okay.
I feel like he's one of the biggest influences on me of that. You can make a really intense, storyful narrative with your piece. And with that, I kind of went with that, but I feel like the aesthetic is way different. I feel like my approach to that is way different.
Mhm.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm looking at it from my point of view. It's possibly very similar. I don't know, but that I feel is still my main focus. I would say the biggest thing that changes, I still try to stick with portraits and people, because I feel like that's the best way of conveying something.
Mhm.
Personally, there's the most flexibility.
Yeah, emotion is such an easy thing to convey with. I say easy. Emotion is it's a fun challenge and very effective if you can use people to do it, because just we all have this unconscious knowledge of nonverbals, you know.
I think the biggest thing is, like, after a while I just got bored with like hyperrealism.
Yeah.
I feel I don't know if like I'm completely done with it, but I just wanted to fuck around with like other styles. Yeah. So I got a little looser. I did that default value null, which I think is personally my favorite.
That's
right now.
That's great, because I was gonna ask you about that piece. So.
Yeah. And it's way looser, and I feel because it's looser, it conveyed exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
I personally feel that's right now my favorite personal piece. But that opened the door for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do a little looser. That's fine. It's fine to be loose. Mm-hmm. Fine to not like meticulously render everything super crisp. Like, I don't have to do super crisp things all the time. Like, sometimes it's okay. I don't know. I'm just kind of fucking around. I'm kind of like feeling my way around, stumbling around, and that's like I did the small what did I call it? I called it random access memory, and also obfuscation. There's two smaller ones that I did that were super loose and surreal, very ambiguous with what was in there, and I like those a little bit better than some of my older ones that are more crisp.
Random access memory
right now
is almost abstract. Like, is extremely abstract, really. And which is really fun, you know, as far as, well, at least it looks like you're having fun. But
it was super fun to do. It looks abstract, but if you look carefully, it's not. It's actually just honest.
yeah. At first glance, you're like, whoa, what? Okay, you know, like,
that's the point.
yeah, good. I default value null is my favorite piece of yours, and to me, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, or tell me what you meant by it. But for me, it feels like it was like, I mean, I was feeling down when I first saw it, and it was just this perfect sort of rendition of, like, I don't feel like there's any place for me to be, and being awkwardly stuck in between things and places and emotions and all these things, in between worlds, you know, and not being able to get clean of it, really, and so it was just, it struck me as really like a real honest moment. So what was that like doing that piece?
Oh man, what triggered that actually? What made me make that? I forget what made me make it. I remember. So I basically ripped that off of Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Nice.
That pose, at least, different angle, but that pose I saw originally, or at least I took note of it originally, towards the end of Neon Genesis Evangelion.
When they run out of money.
No, when Shinji, well, I think so. That's part of it. When Shinji's having his like monologue, and he's in the chair. It's like an overhead view. He's in the chair, just like bracing himself, like trying not to just like completely melt down, which he is. He's melting down. Yeah. And oh my god, I'm getting chills like thinking about that anime. I love that anime. That's the single greatest, not only anime, but like this is the single greatest story. I love that story more than anything else. But he's in that chair and he's just completely defeated. And like you've gone through your depressions, I've gone through my depressions, and we've hit those super low lows. And I just identified with that so hard. And I'm like, that's just like an amazing imagery. Like I wanna do that with my thing and my take. And so I kind of did that. I got my friend Mike, and I got him. I'm like, what kind of person would be in that situation? And my friend Mike has like severe depression also, so like I felt like the first person I thought of was him, but also he's kind of short, so like he fits in the shower a little bit better. So
hey, best of both worlds.
Yeah. So I told him like get in the suit. I kind of felt like, so if you notice, like a couple of my things have like guys in suits. There's something constricting about a suit. Very mentally and physically constricting about a suit. Like when you're in a suit, you can't move much. You can't. It's just like I have to go to this job. I have to do somebody else's bidding. I have to do this and I have to do that. And I'm not my own person. I'm in a suit. Fuck this shit. It's just such a depressing outfit. It's a uniform.
It's a uniform, you know.
It's a uniform. Yeah. But it's not a uniform. It's like a barcode. It's like a fucking concentration camp barcode. Yeah. I fucking wearing suits. I'll wear like a suit, but if I ever wear a suit, I always have to add like a flair to it.
Yeah.
Like I wear a bow tie. I usually wear jeans or something. Not like a suit. Like I look nice, but I'm like, I hate suits. Yeah. Fuck suits. There's something I just hate. But anyway, I got him.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so I have like a collection of bottles, also like beer bottles and like wine bottles and liquor bottles that I've been collecting over since like I started drinking. And I have like 40 bottles in my closet, in my attic closet. And I just kind of like scattered them around. I try to arrange them because one of the things I really like doing is like using objects for narrative and like either narrative or metaphor in general. But like those bottles, it's quite clear that he's an alcoholic. Like he's an alcoholic in real life too. But well. But like, what is I saying? Yeah. So you have this guy in this suit with these bottles around him, and you're just sitting slouched, like it's a small, like weak pose, and looking down. I actually almost drowned him because I was trying different poses. I told him, like, bend your head back, and he's like this, and like after he finished that pose, like, dude, I almost drowned. I'm like, why didn't you just like tell me? It's like, I'm trying to get the pose. I'm like, oh well, thanks, I guess. But yeah, like that, I felt like that was the best pose. And I don't know if you notice, like there's little bottles on the bottom also, which is another thing I like doing. I like kind of like hiding things subtly so you can see them later.
Yeah, have it sort of reveal itself to you over time.
Everybody always asks me this, but know that tube is not a noose. It's just the hose from the shower head.
No, I understand that. I got that right away because I've seen plenty of those. So yeah, definitely not. Do you find yourself sort of get one of the things that I've enjoyed about doing narrative work is getting into character, and it's such an addicting thing. Is like
it is, and it's like unhealthy, but it's also healthy. I feel
yeah.
like I don't know if it's actually healthy, but I feel like it's healthy. But
yeah.
I'm gonna say to myself it's healthy, even though it might not be. I don't know.
Yeah. So you find yourself doing that too, then I guess, in an unhealthy, yeah.
yeah. I enjoy like is. I was telling my friend Natalie, we were talking about this, and we're talking about depression, and I don't think she's ever really suffered the depression to the degree, at least that I have, or at least the chronically that I have. But I've come to like appreciate depression. Like I enjoy my depressions, even though I don't enjoy it. Like I'm like, this is something important that I have to go through right now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them especially afterwards because it's like a perspective thing. And like I feel really low when I'm in the lows. Like it's like brutal. Like there's a fucking elephant on when I'm waking up out of bed. And it's really low. Like, but
can you do work? Can you work through that? Can you do artwork through that?
There's a lot of times when I'm so depressed I can't do artwork, especially not artwork, because what happens when I'm doing artwork is my mind starts to race, and it's just to the point that when I'm doing artwork, there's too much downtime of me not being active enough to get my mind off of the thing that is overly encumbering my mind. So that's where video games come in, and I'll just like binge video games because that'll keep my mind more distracted on the thing, just to get my anxiety in the, like, sometimes it's a chemical thing, and sometimes the chemical just has to pass and I have to get past it. But like if I'm like depressed, doing artwork is sometimes the absolute worst thing I can do. Like I'll take notes for what I'm feeling. Maybe that'll help me for future thing. And I'll be very descriptive of what I'm feeling and what I need to communicate for later. But like doing, like, maybe I'll sketch something real quick, but like if I'm doing like a tedious like work is the absolute worst thing for me. It'll just make things worse and worse because it just spirals and spirals and spirals.
Yeah, especially if you like make a mistake, can't figure out, the problem solving aspect.
It's not even the mistake thing. It's just like there's too much downtime for my thoughts to just swirl around in my brain and amplify. They amplify when that happens, and that's even worse.
So what is it that you have found that you enjoy about it after the fact, or when you're going through it? Because a lot of people have. I find myself sort of dreading the next time because one's coming, and so it's like the good times are like, yay, I'm doing good for now, dun dun dun, So how have you sort of found a way to use it to your advantage?
So I don't really dread I don't really fear them. It's just like at this point it's just a realization it's going to come. It doesn't really ruin my up times. I was on medication for like mood stabilizers since like 3rd grade. And I was like a zombie since like basically, how old was I? I don't know how old I was then. How old are people when they're in 3rd grade?
Oh crap. No, that's that numbers thing. So what do you start when you're 6?
6 or something? I was a zombie for like maybe 10 years, almost more than that. Maybe more than that, like maybe 12, 13 years. Complete zombie. Like I didn't really have any low lows, but even still, if a really bad depression came, it was still super low. But even with the super lows, I never got like a high. I never had a really good feel good moment. I was just a zombie. Yeah. And one month, I think I was in college. I was in art college, and I forgot to take my medicine, and nothing happened. I didn't have any like mood swings. I just felt good. I'm like, okay, well, and then I just kept on forgetting. I didn't intentionally not take any medication. I'm just like, oh, I forgot. Oh man, I should probably remember to do that. Oh shit, I forgot. Oh, I probably should remember to do that. And then next thing you know is like a month later, and I'm like, hey mom, I forgot to like take my medicine. And she's like, oh man, let me call a doctor. Let me ask her what we should do. Like, wait, like I forgot to take my medicine for like the last month. It's like, she's like, what? Like I didn't even notice. Like I noticed you seemed a little more happy than normal, but like you never really showed any like bad times. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what? And so we talked to the doctor, and she's like, yeah, you should be fine. And he's like, as somebody that never really felt good for like the majority of his life, mm-hmm. I'll take the lows. I will gladly take the lows to feel good, like once in a while. Like I feel, and because of that, like I feel like I can, and I'm saying this not to like, if anybody listens to this, and I'm not in no way endorsing to come off your medicine if you need to take medicine. Like, no way am I saying that. Some people absolutely need to be on medication.
Oh yeah.
And some days I think like maybe I should like just take some like antidepressants, but like whatever, it's done.
But you had gone through so long of just, and
I had gone through so long.
Understand that like that's a torturous thing too. Not feeling
that's
anything is
you're numb.
Terrible.
Like you're not a person.
Yeah. How do you react? Do you like anything? Do you want to do anything? And everything's just on
I don't
level.
care.
Yeah.
There was no motivation to do anything. I didn't care about girls. I didn't care about anything. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel any lust towards anybody. I didn't care. Like maybe I felt like something towards some girls, but like it wasn't enough to actually go after anybody. And so I was a loser. I was like behind everybody for the longest time. And the first time I actually felt something, I'm like, I feel. Holy shit. There's like feelings here. And like, oh man, when was this? Oh, that time this is also similar to when I was getting into anime. It was a little before I got into anime, but I was watching Angel Beats. My friend Tina told me, hey, watch Angel Beats. And I'm like, okay. And it's a 13 episode. I think it's 13 episodes or something like that on Netflix. It's super good. Really well done. I watched that shit. And this is around the time that like I was working a job that I didn't have to wake up right away. So I would just be like up all night working on my stuff. And I got to like the last couple episodes, and there's such a conclusion. Like I'll give like a short synopsis. So it's basically about these kids. They die an untimely death, and they're basically in purgatory trying to come to terms with their death. And these kids, because they're kids, are trying to fight the fact that, no, I don't want to be dead. I want to live, and I want to come to terms. Why should I accept the fact that I was like, I'm dead now? I'm not dead. So they're fighting with the facts that they're dead. And towards the end, it's like a journey of them coming to terms with them being dead. And it's way less grim than it sounds. But like at the end of that, I fucking cried my eyes out. Not because of sadness, it was such like a relief for me to like journey with these kids. And like I fucking like the tears went from my eyes. Like I looked down at my shirt, and my shirt was like soaking wet. Like not only that, like when I feel like super emotional, like I get sweaty too. So it was that too. But like, holy shit, I felt so much from that. It was such a good anime.
I love anime for that. It's there's nothing else like it, and that's a good thing. I think that no one's trying to unsuccessfully copy what anime can do, and in these cheesy, sometimes cheesy drawn characters, most of the time amazingly drawn characters, but the art consistently. Like you never forget your first anime.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this?
Yeah. Fucking weeb.
Yeah, right. Do you find that do you find it difficult to do the kind of art that you do in a world of video games? Because I know you're a big gamer, and I'm a big gamer, and I know there are some times, I'm telling you, there are some times I played Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition. The art direction on that game was so good, and and I played that game and I had like this existential art crisis. I was like, oh my god, I'll never do anything with that. You know what I mean? Like just all in your head, you're like, why aren't I doing concept for video game? It's just every once in a while there's a game that's like, holy shit, what am I doing? Do you find that difficult?
You mean in terms of like, am I not competent, or just distractions in general?
No, not even distractions. Just like making the choice to be the kind of artist that you are, you know, and then being exposed to so much awesome art that just is still art, but is in all these new genres. You know, like video games, I think are like, you know, some of the high art of our day. You know, and to see it happening right now, and to just sort of be, anyway, yeah.
I don't think so.
No?
I think if anything, it inspires me to try to translate it to what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like, if anything, it's just inspiration. What really made me feel that kind of like insignificance, if you ever have seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, watch. It's on YouTube. Okay. 6 episodes. It's like 5 minutes each. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a complete masterpiece.
All right, I'll check
that is the single thing that has made me question how good of an artist I am. It's a video, but like, it is complete genius. I was like, holy crap, if I could aspire to be half as good as these videos are, the metaphor, oh my god, it's just so good. I love that video. It's so good. So good.
Nice.
Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Yeah.
All right. I'll check that out for sure. And yeah, that's I love it. I love it when you can find something that's like that good. You know, like so who are your art heroes then? You worship people primarily in the past, dead guys, or is it a lot of living artists that you look to?
I feel like I'm an idiot because I don't really worship any art heroes.
Okay.
I like Muka, but I like Muka just to look at him. I don't really. I guess a little bit of inspiration from Muka, but like, oh man. I guess Tim, my teacher Tim, was a huge influence on me. But I don't really like worship any artists.
Yeah.
If anything, I take the most inspiration from like music and movies and video games and just like the world around me. Like I don't like. I really just stay. I'm out of the loop of artists because I feel like an asshole, but I don't care.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. It's so tough, and I remember like. I remember thinking to myself, man, I should probably know, you know, more about all the artists that are out and around now. And I kind of like, I jumped on Instagram for that reason, but like, I'll take note of their name if they're making really good stuff, but otherwise, it's like, well, I guess I should care. But it's weird because like there is a lot of that hero worship as far as influence goes in the arts, and what I think is interesting is how like, especially artists now that are our age, when you're starting to get into the millennials who have like gotten this kind of training, it starts going all over the place. And for me, it was like, man, yeah, I mean, I've pulled references from Skyrim, you know what I mean? And fucking Chrono Trigger, Legacy of Kain, you know what I mean? It was like I've taken influence from that, where I've like I played it at the time and it just stuck with me so much that like when I finally had the skill, I was like, oh man, Legacy of Kain. I go back and like go over the lore and like love it all over again. Yeah, it's fun. Like you mentioned Neon Genesis, you know, like when you get good art across the board, it's really fun to have it just sort of fuel you, you know, with your work.
Like I'll take inspiration from like other artists. Like I never thought of that technique ever. Wow. Like Jaw Cooper, she does that. You're familiar with her stuff?
Oh yeah, I think so. Cooper, that sounds really familiar. Is that like Rainbow?
JAW Cooper.
Yeah.
She lives in LA.
Okay.
But she does super stylized stuff. I love that stuff, but she has like a bunch of techniques that I've never even thought of, and I'm like, oh, I should try that out. I'm like, maybe that triggers other new techniques for me. And then like, you familiar with Scott M. Fisher? He does the magic stuff, but also a lot of other stuff.
Yeah,
really illustrative, but also super cool. Like he does that stuff with like the Duralar, with like he'll do like an acrylic inks drawing on the back of the Duralar.
Yes.
And it'll use like ink on top of it, and I'm like, what the fuck? I never thought about that shit.
Yeah,
and
he gives his process a lot on Instagram for anybody.
Yeah, and these guys are like inspiring me to really experiment. If anything, these people are like inspiring me to experiment. And I would say those guys, like Draw Cooper, Scott Fisher, people like that, more than the super realistic people, are more inspiring to me at this point of my life than the super realistic people. Because like I'm bored with realism. Like I still like doing realism, but like I guess like in the same way like a band doesn't really listen to their own stuff all the time, they listen to other stuff too. They like people that are like punk, they also like hip hop. It's kind of like that. I like that kind of stuff. I like the super stylized stuff like right now more than anything, I think.
I just lost my thought. Yeah, Instagram is really good for that, getting inspiration from all sorts of stuff. Do you feel like realism is it's kind of too limiting in some ways then for you? You think like sticking within the sort of boundaries that a lot of people, when they adhere to realism as, you know, as a aesthetic, you know, that's kind of too restrictive for you?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if it's too restrictive. Because you can communicate one thing a bunch of different ways. And I don't know how to answer that question. Like, I'm just gonna say that you can communicate one thing a bunch of different ways. Yeah. Sometimes that way is realism. A lot of times that way is like realism. A lot of times you can do it realism, but also do it more stylized. You can do it more painterly. You can do it hyper realistic. You can do it super exaggerated. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun to cycle through. Like if you can think of like how certain styles can lend themselves to, I think, better ways of telling a narrative. And if you can open up that door, it's sort of like, well, if you have an idea, then like you were just saying, like, well, how would that look hyper realist? How would that look impressionistic? How would that look surrealistic? You know, and as long as you have the skills, that opens up, you know, and it's just getting over the hurdle of sort of like breaking through what you were initially taught, or, you know, whatever pressures that we put on ourselves that, we want to maybe stick in the vein. Like you mentioned earlier, I thought it was a really good point. Yeah, there are a lot of artists who find themselves stuck. They get out of school and they find themselves stuck in this this aesthetic that was hammered into them, and then it's like thinking about something only one way. Stylistically, and that's really that's very restrictive, especially if you look at like how many different fun ways, if you're just being exposed to different types of art and multimedia, from YouTube to video games and everything. There's so many ways, like you said, of seeing something that, it's
well, one of the other things I want to touch on, like if anybody's still learning how to draw and paint from their teacher, something that is super, super paramount for them is if they can learn to teach themselves. Because as a teacher, that's something I do more than anything else. I try to tell them the question, how to identify what they need to do, and then the questions they need to ask themselves about it. And that is more important than me saying, oh, make this line. That is infinitely more important. I hated that. Don't tell me what line to make. I want to figure this out on my own. And maybe a certain aesthetic will initially be, instilled in somebody, but they'll have that thought process and they'll have that problem solving process, and eventually maybe they'll be stuck for a little bit. I was stuck for a long amount of time, and I feel like I'm still kind of stuck. I'm kind of like just floundering around, not knowing what I'm doing still. But like, it's important to know what questions you need to ask. You got to identify the thing, then you got to ask the questions about the thing, and the answer will come. If you know the question, you can answer it. But if you don't even know what the question is, how can you answer it?
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. I feel like that is something students really need to learn more than anything.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've told my students more than once that, like, if I'm doing my job right, I'm teaching you how to eventually not need me.
Because, I use those almost exact words. Last semester, I was at the Visual Arts Center. I told everybody, I'm like, guys, I love you as students, but I want you to eventually, like, not be here. Yeah. I don't want you to need me. You can still want to be here and come, but like, I don't want you to constantly need me. Yeah. I want you to just be self-sufficient, and I feel like they appreciate that, because otherwise it's like dishonest. It's like kind of like a collateral. Like, you need me. I am giving you the answers. I don't want to do that. That's fucking like conniving.
Yeah, and not only that, but I feel like, and I've seen this personally with, like, you get the lifer. And the lifer, you see this in ateliers too. You get the lifer, and the lifer just wants to be told what to do next. And you can do that for years and years and years and years, and you're just their external brain. And and I remember how addicting that was at first, because being so lost as a student, and you have no idea what to look for next. Yeah. And the teacher has all the answers. Oh my God. And I remember feeling so dependent, and how and that I didn't like it. And it was like, all right, like you just said, I have to figure out what the problem is before they get to me. Yeah. And I have to figure out, it was a game. I have to figure out what they're gonna say before they say it. And
that goes back to Tim. Tim did that with me.
Yeah.
He would come up to me and say, "Oh, what's going on here?" I'm like, "Oh, I need help with this. What's wrong with this?" And he's like, "What do you think?" And you're like, I do that. I do that all the time. My students, I go a little further. And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you think is wrong?" And like, he's like, "Oh, well, it looks wrong." I'm like, "Okay, well, what looks wrong about it?" I'm like, "Oh," they're like, "It looks too big." I'm like, "Okay, well, what part of this looks too big?" I'm like, "Oh, this part right here." I'm like, "Okay, so why does it look that big?" They're like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, well, let's think this through. What would make that look too big? Is it because it's too big, or is it something around it too big or too small that makes it look too big? Is something too cluttered around it that makes it look too big? Is it a mixture of both? And going through that process with them over and over again, eventually they're able to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they need to be walked through. People have to be walked through that, sort of step by step. It's this analytical kind of way. You can feel your way through it after but like in order to know, you have to step back and you have to go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, sort of walk them through. Matt at Ravenswood used to do that to me. He'd come up behind you and he'd stand there and he'd watch you. And like, he'd be like, no, just keep working. He'd stand there just long enough for you to like start to get into it again. And then he'd tap you on the shoulder and he'd be like, what are you doing? He'd just ask you, what are you doing? And I'm like, every time I don't know. But after a while I realized what that was. And it's like, and I emphasized that a lot. And the last semester that I taught was like, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. You got to visualize what you want before you go after it.
Exactly.
And sometimes that just means standing there and staring.
Yeah. The other thing I really noticed, I don't remember if somebody told me this, but I did notice it, and I've been telling my students this. You need to be able to verbalize. You need to verbalize what the issue is. You need to be able to verbalize the question, and then you can verbalize what the answer to that question is. And then once you can verbalize it, put it in words, you're able to actually visualize it, and you can put it on the canvas, you can put it on the paper much more easily. It's so weird. Like if you think about it at first, like especially for people that are a little more new to the arts, like why does words have to do with anything in the arts? But like it's so weird that putting into words something that you need to do, it really helps you clear up what is going on.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I feel like that is helpful. Sort of going back now to talking about depression. Especially as inspiration. Processing things happen. Things process differently when you say them out loud. And if you have a problem, like you said, I found that to be really inspiring. Just in figuring out where to, how I should tackle something with my art and compositions in handling certain subject matters, just to conceptually sort of like, all right, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, all right, this is the problem. And then I ask myself like, all right, what's it like? And that just kind of opens the door conceptually to, with art to anything, you can go anywhere from that. But voicing the problem, I think, that's extremely, extremely important, especially learning how to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also verbalizing that also connects with my process of developing an artwork. I don't know. I think you mentioned something similar, that you start off with jotting down words and phrases.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In my sketchbook, when I start something, I have at least a page of the idea in words first, and I don't even sketch. I just write down the idea. I write down what I need to do, and I verbalize it because it's more abstract than actually visualizing it with image, and that helps, I feel.
Yeah, and as long as you use just the right combination of words, that image kind of comes right back, and like you said, it could be a page, it could just be, and the words might not even make sense to somebody normally looking at it, but for you, like you read, you figure out, you break it down, all right, what this, and then you read it back to yourself, and it sort of conjures that same sort of flash that you had. It works really well.
Yeah. Man. I love it.
We could keep going, but we're at about an hour now.
We can talk about whatever.
Oh, rock on. Do you think so do you think internal conflict then, like a personal sort of internal conflict, that is good for good work? Like
What do you mean?
I don't know. I always have a hard time, like, looking back historically and the artists who I relate to the most. I always am drawn to people who I feel like end up having issues. Not issues, but end up trying to express those issues, end up trying to dive into, you know, the internal conflict. You know, that's the one thing that all the artists who I really like have in common is that there's this internal conflict going on that they're trying to put into a picture, you know. And
So what's the question again?
So I feel like it's vital. It's vital for work, for good work, but I might be biased. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, here's my take on it. I feel like everybody has this internal conflict of either having any level of like depression. Everybody feels low sometimes. Everybody feels good sometimes. Everybody feels angry sometimes. Everybody falls in love sometimes. Everybody feels something sometime. And everybody goes through shit. Everybody goes through shit. Everybody goes through good times. Some people are more honest with themselves about it than others. And when you're honest about it, like you are, I feel like I am, like other artists, it may not be about the things we're honest about, but maybe it's something honest about how beautiful a bouquet of flowers is. It could be something as simple as that. But a good artist is a good artist because they're honest about the world around them and themselves. Because it's like my friend Chris, we had a talk a long time ago, as above, so below. If it's happening within you, it's probably happening outside. If it's happening in your home, it's happening in the society around you, to some degree at least. Somebody else is going to feel what you feel. And if you're honest about it, it's going to connect with somebody. It's absolutely going to connect with somebody. And I feel like that is what makes a good artist. If they're honest about that, if they communicate that, then they connect. Otherwise, if they're just BSing, it's not going to connect because it's obvious, like it's fake.
Yeah, you get this disingenuous quality.
Yeah.
There's the oh man, I just lost my thought. Like
oh man, the mortality paradox. That painting, that was great. And
thank you.
Like,
you know when you're doing it. Like when you're being honest, like you know it. Like you're like, okay, it kind of makes you feel nervous. It kind of makes you feel like you're saying, like
yeah, but if you notice, you also feel nervous when you like confess love to somebody.
Yeah.
When you connect somebody on an intimate level, you're being intimate with your painting, and you're being intimate with your painting towards other people. You're being intimate towards your audience, and you're putting yourself out there. You're revealing yourself. You're naked.
Yeah. And
that's what I feel. That's what makes a good artist. Just like waving your dick around.
Look at me.
Just your bobs and vagine.
Yeah.
Whatever you have, whatever you got, you're waving it around.
You're waving around. Yeah. The sincerity. It's a sincerity that people can detect it when you're digging deep and you're trying to express. You know, that's the fun thing about sort of trying to discover and doing your own thing is that like I really it's easy to get into the mode of trying to copy certain aesthetics, and I felt that really restrictive as far as the storytelling that I wanted to say. And so like digging internally to sort of express what you want kind of forces you then by necessity to dive into new ground, new territory. And that's what I love the most is like okay, like where can I go next that I haven't gone before, you know, like very Star Trek-y, you know, like I want to be like the Picard of art, you know, like
you gotta explore. And maybe you'll fall back to what you started out with, but you have to explore the other ventures to make sure what you land on is what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You don't want to stick in one spot and then never even try the other things, because then you're wondering, and then the one thing goes dry and you're like, I'm bored with this, and maybe you try all these things and you settle on one thing and you stick with that thing for the rest of your life. Maybe you try all these different things and then you stick with that, the same thing that I just mentioned, but maybe you're like, oh, I like that other thing a while ago. Let me go back and do that again. Mm-hmm. But you want to cover all your bases. And I feel like that's what I'm doing, at least right now. I'm like just kind of fucking around, floundering about, and making a lot of shitty art that I'm not really happy with. Some of it's a hit, like most of it's a miss, and
yeah, that's okay though, because oh man, there's some times where it's like, yeah, you gotta try something out and it's just like it's absolutely nothing like how you pictured it would be. And then every once in a while the exact opposite happens. You know, have you had a time, is there a piece that like sort of embodies from start to finish, it was just exactly what you wanted it to be? Like you had like a hot moment, like a on fire moment.
I have to think. I think my self-portrait, the one with the marbles on my mouth, I didn't really know what I was doing. I kind of was just like, hey, I'm going to put marbles on my mouth, take a picture. Actually, Tim, I was learning under Tim at that time, and he took the picture, and he's like, dude, I'm not driving you to the hospital. If you choke on those marbles, don't drop them on the floor, because I don't want my dog to choke on them either. Nice. He was more worried about his dog than I was worried about me. But I did that, and I'm like, this is going to turn out like crap. And I finished it. I'm like, holy shit, I just did that. And I guess that, but like, I guess also default value null. Yeah. That was another one, because I went looser, and I'm like, I'm not really feeling this. And I kind of went loose. And the whole time I was just like, fuck this shit. I don't like this. I think I watched, I don't know what I was watching at the time. I just like binged TV, and I kind of got to the end, and I'm like, fuck this shit. And I took off the overlays so I don't rub my hand all over it, and so I can focus. I sometimes I'll focus on a certain image, a certain part of it, by blocking off other areas, so I can focus. I have horrible attention span, and I took off the other pieces. I'm like, wow, that's like, I like it. Cool. Okay. Yeah. And then I looked back at it another day, and I'm like, you know what? This actually like. Nice. So, but yeah.
That's kind of like a sort of like a doctor's technique with operating. You know, they'll isolate the wound, and then they can just focus on the wound. Do you find that? I don't know why I thought of that at the moment. I just remember talking about that specifically when I was going to the Ravenswood, and there was a student there who was a retired heart surgeon, and he brought that up. Like, we did that when I was a heart surgeon, and he's like, maybe you should try it, you know, like isolate. Do you sometimes though, I found that with that, like, I have a tendency to put more into it because I'm looking only at that, and then all of a sudden it gets a sort of finish that I wasn't wasn't shooting for intentionally, like it just because of the isolation. Do you have problems with that at all, or are you able to keep that in mind, like the level of finish that you want for the whole piece?
Yeah, no, I kind of when I set up my reference, I set up my reference in Photoshop first.
Okay.
So I'll set up my reference and I'll set it in a way that I have the image, and I'll do multiple layers. I'll do multiple duplicates of the image in multiple layers. And I'll start with the top layer. I'll make it really fuzzy, and I'll erase out all that layer that's going to be more in focus. And then I'll make the next layer under that a little less fuzzy, and I'll erase it out the stuff that's going to be even more in focus. And then I'll make the next layer a tiny bit less fuzzy, and that helps me get my depth with even the more shallow depth pieces. It gives me more atmospheric perspective.
Okay. You're playing the smart reference game. I mean, that's like a thing. That's like an art in of itself. Like figuring out how to take good references. I've dropped the ball. Like, oh man, you learn the hard way if you do. Like if you can only get a reference for this one thing, and then you don't get the one that you knew that you should have gotten.
I'm working on the commission right now that I can't say too much about it because it's supposed to be like secret for like a secret surprise for somebody. But like the reference I have is like brutal. Like it's the only picture he could get for me, but like it's all blown out. It looks like an old photo, an old grainy digital photo that was also put through a grainy Instagram filter. And on top of that, I need to Photoshop another thing in that's from another picture, and it's more in focus, more contrast. And I had to like take the newer picture and make it basically more shitty so it was uniform.
And hopefully the light sources are consistent. And everything. That's a nightmare. Yeah. Good reference. I swear, taking bad references has forced me to be more creative. But like when you got a commission and it's not your work, that's a totally different story. It's like there's only so far you can go with that because it's not yours really. But
oh man.
Well, what are you showing anything right now?
I got that painting of the guy pointing down.
Yes.
I call it the lasso.
Yeah.
So I have that I'm delivering tomorrow. Hopefully I can get to the Salmagundi Club. It's going to be in an auction for the Salmagundi fall auction. So that's going to be there.
Excellent.
That was a fun piece, and that was like a bullshit piece too. Like everybody asks me like, is there any meaning behind it? I'm like, no, there's no meaning. But I'm like, what do you think? Kind of thing, and I don't know. I'm completely I'm going to be completely honest that there is no meaning behind that piece. Put your own meaning in it. I thought it was interesting. So it is interesting in the way that you can kind of like copy and paste whatever meaning you want.
Yeah.
It's like interesting enough like that, but like I'm not going to like say I had no intention of putting any meaning in it. I just thought it was a cool piece. It was a scrap reference from when I was in Centralia, the Silent Hill series.
Simon Hill?
Silent Hill.
Oh, Silent Hill. Yeah.
So Centralia is a place in Pennsylvania that series was based off of.
Oh, cool.
There's actually the church is actually there up on the hill. We saw that. The abandoned highway is there. So cool. Like if you're ever in that area, you can go there. You can walk down the highway. The highway's all collapsed. There's graffiti penises everywhere. Graffiti penises and swastikas. Yeah.
The dicks and swastikas.
I don't know. Lay off the discs and Nazis. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, that was on the way to the highway. It was like a little trail going to the highway, and I was just like taking pictures every so often. And my friend Pete was just like pointing down. I really liked it. I didn't really have a meaning to put behind it, but I really liked the image, and I'm like, I want to paint this. And sometimes like a certain point, that's another thing you were asking about, how I changed as an artist. Before, there has to be meaning in everything, but like now I'm more like, sometimes I just want to paint something. Like there doesn't have to be a meaning between everything. Sometimes it's just nice something art to look at. Like I really like looking at that one. So instead of actually naming all the things that I am actually putting thought into for like metaphor in a narrative, I'm just so you and anybody that's listening like has like a clue on what is what. If they're like right now, for instance, specifically, maybe not later on, but I've been naming the things that have narratives based on like computer terms.
Okay.
So like default value null, random access memory, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Something I had like a thought process behind, and I want to actually convey something. Things that I'm not really putting any thought into in terms of narrative. I'm just naming bullshit names. So I called it the lasso. Me and my friend were like talking like, oh yeah, Pete, you should call him Pete the Lasso. Like, why is he called the Lasso? And we're like, he's like, I don't know, we'll just call him the Lasso. So I just called it the Lasso.
Nice. What's the motivation behind the computer, the names then?
So I am a huge tech nerd, and I love codes and stuff.
Okay.
I love the crypticness of it.
Okay. It's like its own language. Yeah.
It's its own language. Like I for the longest time I've had like Linux on a partition of my computer, and I would go on there just to like play around with like the terminal, just to like open up programs, just so I could just open up programs through the terminal. Like you can do that in Windows, but it's like you gotta like go down to the search bar and you gotta find command prompt, but with like Linux you just like do Control T and like terminal, open up Chrome, blah blah blah, or remove this folder in this folder, remove this directory, remove this file. And it's so cool, like it's so direct but it's so cryptic at the same time. And I just love it. I love codes, I love coding. And like, so I wanted to express my appreciation of technology and the beauty of technology and the elegance of it too. I just love it. I love it as a language. I love it as a thing. I have like drawers of broken computer parts right now. Like I've taken old keyboards, I've busted up the keys, I've taken that out. I have like an old VCR that I just smashed open. I have an old scanner that I ripped apart. I took like the scanner pieces. I have old MP3 players that have the motherboards on there. I have like old computers that have the motherboard and the fan and the processor on, all saved up for future things that I am in the process of working on. And it's just like such a beautiful thing, because like if you look at a circuit board, like even just on an MP3, like a busted up old MP3 player, like there's all these little like avenues, and it's like a city.
Yeah.
Is so it. I feel like I'm weird, just like beautifying technology in the way I am, but like it just, oh my god, I love technology. But yeah, I noticed that a lot of the language in commands and callbacks, in like a terminal or a command prompt, they could be used as like titles or a phrase. And so like that's where default value null came. It's a callback. It's a callback for the default value is null. It's nothing. You have no value. You feel like you have no value. That's the default value for yourself. And
everybody's kind of familiar with that by now, but at the same time, I know
yeah,
I personally, and I know a lot of people, like it does seem like a mysterious kind
yeah,
of thing, a mysterious kind of language, and you gotta it seems like you have to work really hard to get it, but at the same time, once you learn it, it makes things that much easier,
yeah.
you know. But I think that's really cool as far as like, you know,
As a language is just like so. I just realized how versatile of a language it is.
yeah, yeah,
Like obfuscation. Obfuscation is a term I usually is you can obfuscate a file, and it could be corrupted and obfuscated, and it's all like rendered unrecognizable.
mm-hmm.
And that's what obfuscating is, or an obfuscation is rendered unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
Random access memory, obviously RAM, but what is RAM? RAM is a compartment of your computer that holds the processes that you're doing right now. But when you shut off your computer or shut off the process and you go back to it, all that's new. It's a completely different process. It's a completely different thing. And also the name of it itself, random access memory, is just random. It's like your point of view, like my thought with that is your point of view is completely different from somebody else's.
Yeah. Oh man, it made me think about in Ghost in the Shell too, when they're talking about how humans sort of inadvertently end up recreating themselves through the things that they make. So from cities to circuit boards, it's sort of a representation of this neural net, this sort of these neuronal functions that sort of dictate us in a very sort of machine-like fashion, you know. So what I'm getting is that you're ready and willing for the robot takeover.
I don't know about that.
No.
I don't know about that.
I thought you'd be with me on that. No.
I may be a little more ready than others. I may be ready as much as you can be, but am I willing? I don't know. I'll fight those motherfuckers
to the day I die.
I'll dump them into a vat of molten lava, like in Terminator 2.
Dude, did you see how everybody lost their shit over that Rembrandt painting that the computer made? Like, that scared people. That really scared people.
Right, yeah, I saw that. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? They're
who cares?
Oh, you can't
like, yeah, cool. Somebody programmed somebody to do a painting. Okay, yeah. So what?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a duplicate.
Well, I think it was sort of what scared people was how it like compiled all the right eyes that he made and produced an average.
Yeah.
This is an average Rembrandt eye. And I think that's what scares people. Like, even if it's abstract.
It is super primitive, though. It's a super primitive program. Like, there's been face merges since like I was in high school. Like, oh yeah, take this guy's face, merge them together, you get like a monstrosity of an ugly person. Like, okay, it's not that uncommon of a program, and they just applied it in a more refined version as a robot painting a painting. It's like whatever, but like what would be a more philosophical outlook of that is what happens when robots become sentient. That's another question entirely, but my personal outlook on that is if a robot becomes sentient and it becomes to the point where it's making artwork, will it be able to produce art more efficiently? Maybe. But at the same time, if it's producing art that's more efficient, one, does that hold any value if it's pumping out efficient, unique aware artwork efficiently, and does it matter, or not does it matter, but will that artwork communicate to me on a personal level? If it's a robot, can it relate to me? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's a robot. It has a different perspective on the world than a human does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but yeah, I mean, I personally think that like we don't have to worry about that until they have their own bodies, and which sort of reduces it back to the individual in some sense, because sort of people kind of like think like, oh, robots, and it's this plural sort of like they're everywhere, they're in the computer, you know, and that's sort of like worrying about a lobster suddenly becoming sentient and destroying the earth, and it's like your laptop's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Your smartphone's not gonna take over the planet. Don't worry about that. Like if the AI is embodied, has a physical form, then it can only make art adequately based on the experience it has within the body. And I can see humans maybe relating to that because there's going to be some crossover. But then it's also like, well, you still don't have anything to worry about because that's only one machine. That's only one embodied intelligence. And it's not going to be able, well, let me upload this to the internet so that all the AI can do it, you know?
Yeah. Like, the other thing is it really an issue? Because all we have to do is just not make any sentient robots.
yeah, there is always you don't
like keep them out of the manufacturing facilities, and you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. I
actually, you're familiar with Scott Burdick, right?
Oh yeah.
Have you read his book, Nihala?
I haven't. Is it any good?
Read it. Oh my God. I got the audiobook because I have a hard time reading because I like just listening to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. But do one or the other. I love that. It touches on AI, touches on religion.
He's an interesting guy.
Yes. Very interesting person. But yeah, that's a really good book. I recommend it.
It's nonfiction or?
It's it's fiction. It's
okay, cool.
The best way I can explain it, maybe a possible future.
Okay.
A possible future, I would say, maybe.
Yeah. It's funny. He's really vocal online, especially when it comes to political and religious stuff. One of the questions, and I respect that a lot. You know, even if I happen to not agree with it, and I agree with most of what Scott says. In fact, I haven't really seen or heard anything that he said that I disagreed with. But artists in general, and
well, he's very outspoken, but he's also very diplomatic and civil about it, and
respectful.
He's honest but very respectful and diplomatic, and I'm a little less diplomatic sometimes.
That's okay. I'm with you. No, one of the questions that he gets often, and I think this applies to you and well the both of us especially, is that like people are like, well, you're not religious, so why are you focusing so heavily on something that you're not, you know? And his response, I remember, was really interesting. He was like, well, you're kind of summing it up. He's like, you're kind of missing the point. I find this subject to be extremely fascinating to me, and just because I don't believe in it, I mean, do you ask that of historians? I mean, do you have to believe in all of history that you write about? So that's a really
I'm not a wizard, but I fucking love Harry Potter. I love Lord of the Rings. I mean, you can take interest in things that you're not. I take a heavy interest in religion. And it does affect me.
Yeah.
It does affect me because these people are trying to legislate things that are affecting my daily life. But on top of that, like, this is super interesting. There's a psychology on it. Why do people believe these things? Why would somebody believe in something that has absolutely no representation in the observable world around us? And like, these things are answerable, but the question of this and prodding and poking and sifting around for these answers to those questions is something that's super fascinating to me.
Oh my God, yes, yes, and that's the sense. I don't get the sense from you or Scott that any of the subjects that you've touched on are done in an overtly critical, because that's the tendency, and I think that's the trepidation that religious people might feel, is that like, oh, you don't believe in God, so they're expecting the usual sort of atheistic kind of poking and prodding and nitpicking, and while that does happen, I don't see it in the work. It's more of like you said, it's more of a fascination. It's like what's going on here? Like you said, it's extremely fascinating. I think that ties really closely into even the history of representational art, because then you have all these symbols, the symbolism and the aesthetics, and that all is so closely tied into it too that you can't separate the two in my mind.
No, it's completely inseparable. I religion is something, even for myself though. I know you grew up Jehovah's Witness. I grew up very leniently Christian. I don't know. We have time to talk, right? About religion?
Oh yeah. We're good. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Yeah. So I was very leniently Christian because my mom grew up Assyrian Orthodox, which is very similar to Greek Orthodox. Okay. So, or Roman, not Roman. It's not Roman. There's no such. I don't think there's such thing as Roman Orthodox. I don't know. Greek Orthodox is probably the most similar because it's a Mediterranean kind of deal.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, but in terms of like the dogma of it is very, very similar. Like the same stories, the same approach to it.
Is that more symbolic?
I don't know, because I couldn't understand a fucking word they said. Okay. They spoke in Assyrian Aramaic when I would go there, and we wouldn't go frequently because one is all the way in Paramus, which is like 40-minute drive from either of my now house or my old house, which is super far. And I would go to, originally when I was really little, we would go with my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and we would go to the Assyrian Orthodox Church. And that's when my grandma was there. My grandma was a really important person of the church. And I don't know, talking to my mom is very, very spiritual. She's not very religious. Spiritual is, I have my thoughts on spiritual. Yeah. But in the way, I'm spiritual, the crystal healing, it's not as dogmatic as full on religious. And so talking with her, because she's very curious too. What part of my curiousness I feel like is brought on by her, at least a little bit. She kind of like puts her head in the sand for a lot of things. I don't want to like say that to insult her, but let's be real here.
Moms.
I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. I absolutely. My mom is actually a saint. Not like Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is like a dick, but if I was to saint somebody, my mom would be like first pick. She went through so much shit in her life, especially later on with my dad and everything, but that's another story. But she is such a supportive person, first off. But that being said, she puts her head in the sand when it comes to confronting her beliefs. And I think that is because she doesn't want to confront it, and she knows she's confronting it, and she knows it's not real, and she kind of just retreats. But talking to her about religion, I I learned that I think my grandma didn't even really believe in that stuff to a T. Like she just kind of went for the community, and but going there, like we would go and we would see family, which was cool, and like cousins that I would see like maybe once every couple weeks or every other month or something. And that church was like a party. It was like a party. It was a huge, like they were loaded. They were fucking loaded. They had like a whole like huge chandeliers with Swarovski's crystals. That's how huge this fucking church was. Like they would have bazaars and like every day after church, every Sunday after church, huge party with insane Assyrian food. And like
that's why people are going. Jeez.
They go for the food. And fuck it. I love Assyrian food. That is the shit. You make some like Assyrian meatballs, gloriekni. It's called gloriekni. Dude, I am there. You fucking make some food for me, I am there. Especially if it's like gloriekni, especially if it's like yakpita or something like that, which is like it's like a meat patty kind of thing with like put in like bulgur, which is what is it? It's raw wheat germ. Bulgur is raw wheat germ. I'm using like Assyrian terms for everything because that's what I was raised to pronounce it. But like that food was the shit. Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, religion, Assyrian church. I didn't understand a word that was said. I just had this idea like, oh, I'm Christian. I guess I believe in Jesus. Looking back at it, like I sincerely believe I sincerely believe that stuff. Like somebody was sick. I'm like, oh, come on, please make them not sick and stuff like that. But like,
so it was just a given then growing up that like, you had this tradition. Sort of the tradition thing, and this is kind of how it was, but it wasn't sort of forced on you. But like, so it's just a given in the back of your head. Oh, Jesus is real, sort of deal.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was probably more dogmatic than anybody else. Like, I remember when I was really little, I said, "Oh God," and then I was scared as shit at him. Like he was abusive. He was a very abusive person. He still is. And I remember him like getting over me, looking like he was going to smack me with his ring, which he did a couple times. I had like a welt when I went to like a t-ball, and like, what happened? I'm like, oh, I fell, whatever. And he's like, never use the Lord's name in vain, which is like, he's Catholic. He's like, okay, well, he's super like law-abiding Catholic kind of guy. Yeah, Catholics suck. I can't remember where I heard this from, but I remember watching either a cartoon or something, and all I remember is this line, he's a Catholic. And I remember that to this day. I wish I could remember where that's from. But yeah, the Catholic religion is, oh my God, that's horrible.
I apologize to I've kind of stopped doing it, but I used to do it. Like someone would tell me they were Catholic, and I would just be like, oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And they get mad, and they're like, what? And then they're like, why would you say that? And then I'm like, don't you know your own history? Like.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, like, before I go any further, I don't want to give the impression that I think that the people that are religious suck. I don't think that Catholics suck. I think the religion of Catholicism sucks. I think the religion of Christianity, all the denominations, all the 50,000 denominations. Oh, which one's real, by the way? They all suck. And I don't think the people suck. The belief system sucks. It kind of trickles down to the people, but I don't hate the people. The belief sucks. But yeah, like the Assyrian Orthodox Church, like I didn't know a thing that was being said. Yeah. So I just had this basic belief that, Jesus, God and stuff, whatever. And looking back, that's pretty much literally all it was. I remember going to Sunday school one day there. I think I went like 2 days, not in a row, but 2 days. And I remember them talking about the Big Bang, and like somebody said, like, oh yeah, I remember some of the teachers saying something about the Big Bang, but I don't believe that. I believe that Adam and Eve was the real story. And I'm like, I remember this is like, I'm in elementary school right now, but like, what the, like, you can't really believe that crap, can you? And like, how do you believe something that is quite seriously off base? I didn't even know what the Big Bang was at that point. I seriously didn't even know what the Big Bang was. But like, you're gonna honestly tell me that you believe that Adam and Eve is the real story? I was like 5, 6 years old, and I'm like, that's bullshit. And the basic journey from there was like, we moved, and we took care of my grandma. We stopped going to church, the Assyrian Orthodox Church, a little more frequently. We did not go, and it got to the point where she eventually died of cancer because we taking care of her, and we started going to the Episcopal church nearby us, which is like maybe 5-6 minutes away. And I could actually hear the words now, which is kind of cool. Okay, cool. I hear the words, and I was in the youth group, and this is up until like senior year of high school. I was in the youth group. I was like, oh, I'm a Christian. I have a cross. During this time, though, I'm in Livingston, New Jersey. It's like half Jewish. And so there's like a conflict of belief here. Not a conflict of like, I don't like you, but like, there's all these people that believe something different. It kind of like, I didn't really think about that, but like, it was in there.
And they're skeptical. They believe
they're
something
very skeptical.
And they're skeptical.
A lot of the Jewish people in my town, they're not actually Jewish in terms of they believe, they're Jewish strictly for this culture also. There is a lot of people that believe, but there's also a lot of people that are there for the culture, at least from my experience. So I think I was senior year of high school at this time, and that's when when Tom Cruise was like super, like everybody's like, whoa, he's like super Scientologist-y. And he jumped up and down on the thing, on Oprah's thing, and there was like a special on 60 Minutes on Scientology.
Yeah, he was flying high.
I remember there being a special on 60 Minutes for Scientology, and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, people actually believe this crap? And I go in. And I forget which period it was, but it was gym class. I'm sitting down, we're stretching, and I talked to my friend Roman, and I'm like, dude, did you see that 60 Minutes special? Like these guys, they call them Scientologists, and they think they're like a real religion. And he just looks at me, and he says, well, what's a real religion? And I'm like, I don't know, like Christianity and Judaism. And it kind of just was left at that. But like that question was like in my brain for the rest of my life. And I'm like, wait, I didn't think about it. I didn't even dwell on that question for the rest of my high school career. It wasn't until I got to college where I even knew there was a possibility to not believe in something. I met my friend Tina. She married my also friend Chris, so Chris and Tina, good name duo. They're atheists, and I'm talking with them, and I'm in this art school with like super religious people that think that you can talk in tongues, and in contrast with like a flat out atheist that was super out there about it too, like super honest and blunt about it. Like, I don't believe in any of that shit. Yeah. That's all bullshit. It's stupid. And I'm like, there's also like people that believe in like paganism, like, oh, I believe in this. I like this. I like these gods, and so I believe in that. But I'm like, what? You just believe in it because you like it? And even though I didn't think of like, oh, you don't have to believe in anything, I'm like, that sounds weird that you can just like choose to believe in something just because you like it. That doesn't make sense to me. What?
Yeah.
And so eventually I'm talking to Tina, and I'm like exploring, like I'm like questioning Christianity, and I'm like, why? What religions? So I'm like looking into Christianity, like all the different denominations of Christianity. Not all of them, but like a lot of them. And like this, I don't know. Let's look at like a quick look at Judaism. That doesn't look right either. Let's let's peek at Islam. Like, well, fucking 9-year-old. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, whoa, slowly back away. Slowly back away.
Let's get out before I get swatted. And I stumbled on to Satanism, and that is like the last thing. I went through a couple other things. I looked at like Norse mythology and all these other things, just sort of like perspective. And then I stumbled onto Satanism, specifically LaVeyan Satanism, which is more or less just atheism with principles, with like a set thing of principles. And that really spoke to me. I'm like, oh, they don't really believe in a god. They just like the idea of Satan as like a character, which, by the way, Satan is, I don't think this is a bad guy in the Bible, by the way. Like Lucifer also he's not Satan. I don't think depending on the Bible though, maybe. I don't know. I don't think Lucifer is Satan. Do you know?
As far as I know, the terminology is stays pretty true. If it says Lucifer in the Bible, I think they mean the devil. I think, I don't know as far as like mythology goes, though. I think it's different with mythology. It's like Lucifer can,
either way, Lucifer, all he wanted was to like not be pushed around, like stop being a dick, God, and like fuck you, you're out of here. Like all he wanted was some freedom. Like angels don't have any free will.
Yeah.
Like he wants free will.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't make sense, because if they don't have free will, how do they have the free will to ask for free will? I don't know.
Yeah.
So he passed out, and now he's like whatever. He's a fallen angel. So anyway, Satan kind of spoke to me a little bit, and because I also really liked. I was really into Iron Maiden at the time too. So like 666, the number of beast.
Yeah.
And like, oh my God, I still love Iron Maiden. I gotta re-listen to some of that stuff.
Makes me wish I had long hair.
Yeah, I contemplating cutting my hair, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. Yeah. So eventually, I'm like, I don't know. Let's think about this for a second. And I kind of skimmed through the Satanic Bible, and I kind of lost interest just because I was distracted trying to get stuff done. And I'm just like, I don't think I believe. I don't believe in anything. Maybe I'm just an atheist. I don't know. And like, that was like a long process. I was like maybe 2-3 years of a process, just from not even the high school stuff. That was just like once I met my friend Tina, and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make like. I'm like, this is a possibility, and I didn't even know that was a possibility. Okay, okay, yeah. It is kind of weird at first, like you mentioned in the one podcast when you're talking to your cousin.
Yeah.
I don't feel the void that you give the impression that you still, I guess you still kind of feel, but like, it was weird at first.
Yeah.
To come to that conclusion.
I was just going to ask something along those lines. There is, I think the void is taken different shape for me over the years, but I remember specifically we have a very very similar atheist origin story, and with with going to college and being exposed to these different viewpoints, and then gradually coming out of belief. But I had a tenured art history teacher who he did not give a shit. It was hilarious. He was a flaming atheist. He was a flaming atheist, and he would go on these atheistic rants during art history class. And he'd be like, I don't know how you Christians have even survived. And then he would get into like what they would believe, and then how they tied into these other cultures, and how they stole it from all these other cultures. And I'm just sitting there. I have no idea how to process this. Like, I used to, I'm coming out of still not being sure if evolution is true. You know, that's where I was when I was a freshman, you know, and I'm like, I still don't even know if this is what's going on here, you know, and he's just blowing my mind. And he was the nicest, smartest fucking dude that you could imagine. And so it was like, it didn't fit the bill, like the impression that you get of non-believers when you're a Christian. But I remember specifically, like, when I came to that conclusion, like, man, maybe like you said, like, maybe I don't believe in anything. It suddenly was like, you know, the shirt's ripped off your back and you're just free falling. And it was like, but now what? Woo, I'm falling, you know, like, so did you experience that then?
I don't know. I don't remember. I remember there was a lot of resentment.
Okay.
Like, if you're familiar with like Jacqueline Glenn, right?
Jacqueline Glenn.
The atheist YouTuber?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so I started watching her also not around that time, maybe way after, but she started off very, very in your face, like very blunt, very sarcastic, very harsh about religion. And as things unfolded and as time went on, like, she really relaxed. And I feel like that happened with me. Like, I was very in your face. I'm like, this is bullshit. That's bullshit. I would like go out of my way to say like, hey, you're bullshit. Like, that's don't you see how much bullshit that is? You don't like see how blaringly in your face, not connected with the reality that is to the very basic observable eye. You don't even have to have a basic understanding of science to understand how disconnected from reality that is. And like, I didn't have anybody to connect to, and I just like very resentful, like, because I would tell I told my parents, like, I told my mom first, I'm like, I don't think I believe in that shit. And she's like, I think that's when I learned from that my grandma wasn't really a believer in the sense that I originally thought. But
so the blowback
like, I
from
was
that
like,
wasn't hardcore then?
No, she was totally accepting of it. Like, she was like, hey, it's okay, no worries. And my dad less so, obviously. Like, he would, like, if I was upset about something, or if he was mad at me about something, which was about everything and nothing at the same time because he was a fucking asshole, he would just go and say, you don't even believe in anything. I'm like, fuck you, buddy. So like, he tied all my depression on like that I don't believe in anything, which is not true. I believe in many things, just not, disconnected from reality things. And in reality, my depression, a lot of it is tied to the treatment I got from him growing up. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Well, hey, man. Man. You gotta hand it to the dads who fuck us up. I don't know what it is about tyrannical fathers and their attraction to religions.
Oh my God.
It just draws them. They're just.
I think they're tyrannical partially because religion.
Yeah.
My dad is also a severe narcissist.
We've talked about the narcissism before, so that's the connection then.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, because I think there are narcissists that aren't. I'm pretty sure there's narcissists that are just like not religious, but I see the connection of why they would be attracted to that.
I think given what you've mentioned so far, that like, I don't think religion really would have worked on you, like just because of the medicated, like preventing you from getting any of the highs, right? Because I think that's
Yeah,
where like religion gets you, like especially when you're a little kid, like you get
yeah.
that like that high of being in this community and all around, like you know you can really be flying high on that, and that's where they insert Jesus into that high, you know, and I think that's really what sticks with people. But if you're
Well,
not experiencing that,
that's one of the biggest red flags about religion. They take you see pretty much most any story of anybody taking on a new religion is because they were in a low,
yeah.
and it takes advantage of a low, and it makes them feel good. Oh man, what was that? Oh man, I forget what I had a thing that that reminded me of. Maybe it was a movie, maybe it was a song. I don't remember. Oh shit! What did I just drop? But
I was
anyway,
talking
yeah.
about community and how you don't get that high when you're in a community. If you were always level,
No, yeah.
and you're not gonna
Uh,
get that high.
it takes advantage of the lows, and it
Yeah,
makes you feel good, and it makes you dependent on it.
yeah,
And when you're when you're really low, you'll accept just about anything.
hmm
You'll accept more shit taking, like you'll take more shit, you'll take praise, you'll take anything. You'll just take anything.
hmm
And when a cult of any kind, well, let it be a mainstream religion, let it be Jonestown. I don't care. When you're low, when you're built up by something, you want that feeling. And I think that it's a good point that you bring up. That might be one of the reasons, but I don't know. Maybe not. I feel like the biggest reason is because I'm a very curious person and like to poke and prod, and I'm objective about things. But at the same time, maybe you're right. Like maybe part of that might be because I never felt that high of that religion can sometimes offer, at least off the bat. And when I was low and also young and impressionable, nowadays I seek evidence, and because the evidence doesn't present itself in certain things, I don't accept it, and when it does, I do accept it. But like,
yeah,
with that, like I think also that thing you mentioned of not really feeling the highs and sometimes not the lows because of the medication. I feel like I'm very cold with my thing.
hmm
Also, I was thinking about this the other day, maybe last week or something. I feel like I was listening to Tony Robbins, and as much as I fucking hate the mumbo jumbo that he spills out, I was listening to Personal Power 2 is a great thing to listen to if you can take it with a grain of salt, because he fucking tried to tell you, the listener, that he cured somebody of his dyslexia. I'm like, you fucking can't cure dyslexia, you fucking moron, piece of shit.
Yeah.
But the points he explains is there where for like motivation and everything. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
As far as God, we were
Oh, lows. Oh, right. So he mentioned that if you were going to blame somebody for all the bad things in your life, you got to blame them for some of the good too. And I'm like, no, fuck that shit for the longest time. And I listened to this tape like maybe over a year ago, and maybe like a week or so ago, I was actually thinking about it. I was on a drive to teach, like a 40-minute drive, and I actually started thinking. I didn't have a radio on. I forgot to put it on. I'm like, you know what? Let's actually entertain it. Let's figure this out. And I thought, like, yeah, maybe I have like a horrible chronic depression that keeps recurring. Maybe I have a really low self-esteem that I'm getting out of, and maybe I have all these negative things because of this horrible person that tried to literally kill me. But you know what? Because of all the chronic stress that I've been under for the entirety of my life, I feel like, you know how like you hear people, I can't watch scary movies. People that are really good with scary movies, they watch a lot of scary movies and it desensitizes them. I feel like I have been desensitized to stress to the point that I'm very good in high pressure situations.
Yeah.
I thought about when Hurricane Sandy hit and we lost power for 2 full weeks. When it was happening, I was like, yeah, just do this. We can do that. Let's do that. We can take care of this in this way. And my mom looked at me and she's like, you're really good in like a high pressure situation. I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, I'm like, I think it's because of that. So it's like I got negative, I got good thing out of a negative.
Yeah, and that's important. That's really important to do, especially with, abusive parents. It's funny you say that because I was just thinking the other day about like, I had this weird realization. I've been watching, what is it, Dad of Light? No, it's the new Netflix series, Japanese. It's so cheesy. It's about Final Fantasy, and it's this kid. It's about this kid who like his dad was really sort of neglectful, kind of like he didn't talk much, but he was always there for me. He just never talked much, and
Yeah.
the only way that he ever connected with his dad was through Final Fantasy for a brief period of time when he was younger. And his dad mysteriously up and retires out of nowhere, like, years and years later. And and so he figures like, oh, well, he buys him a PlayStation 4 and he buys him the new Final Fantasy Online game, Final Fantasy 15, I think.
Yeah.
And then uses it as a way to like secretly reconnect with his father online. And I was thinking, I was like, holy shit, like the only good memories I have with my dad was playing video games. And I was like, that's all I got. And I thought just what you said, man, I gotta find some good. Good. So I was like, oh man, okay. Video games, I finally figured it out. Like, this is why I feel so comforted when I play fucking video games. And it took like I'm 35 and I'm like, and I finally figured this shit out. But you take what you can get, because if you don't have it, and especially like men who have abusive fathers who then like don't end up helping them in their lives, they're prone to certain health ailments down the road. It's gonna kill you young. Well, why?
It's gonna kill. The other maybe 2 nights ago, I literally had a nightmare about him.
Yeah.
I had a nightmare because one of the things we had an issue with is he helped me with cars. Like he's a mechanic, he was a metal fabricator, and he would always help me finding transportation. And he would always hook me up getting a good deal or something on a car. But at the same time, because he's a fucking narcissist piece of shit, he would do these favors, and without even asking me about the favor, he would use it as leverage, collateral. I like collateral better than leverage because it's more blunt and more to the point about what it really is. He uses that as collateral. Now you do something for me. Now you owe me.
Now he's got a tally. He's keeping.
He's a little bit of Italian in his blood. I don't think it. I don't.
A tally. Yeah. Like he's keeping a tally. Like
this is the good thing I did. Like the fucking mafia is what I thought you were getting at. But it's exactly what it is. So I had a dream that we were picking up a Jeep, and keep in mind I haven't talked to him in about a year. I've been going out of my way. I blocked him on my phone. I blocked him on email. I blocked him on text. I blocked him on social media. It's very important that I stay away from him because he's very, very abusive. He's malicious. And so I had a dream out of nowhere. I haven't even thought about him in weeks. And I had a dream. We were picking up a Jeep. It was like a weird truck Jeep. It was like a pickup truck, but a Jeep, white. And it was like in a weird, shady area. I don't know if I don't know if that's significant. I don't think any of it is significant at all, actually, other than the fact that we were driving back. I think we might have been in the Jeep. That was also a pickup truck. I don't know. But all of a sudden he started strangling me.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up. And it reminded me of another dream I had years ago before he moved out, before he was kicked out, not moved out, kicked out. So this other dream I had, I actually logged this one down in a notebook somewhere. I have to find this one because this was vivid. And this was so vivid that I'll actually get into that in a second. But I had a dream that it was a mixture between the two houses I lived. And it was like back a couple years from then. And I think I was going to have friends over for a birthday party or something, or a late birthday party because my birthday is in February, but I think it was in summer, which I did once. I had a summer birthday party and I was filling up balloons, I think. And I don't remember the things leading up to it because one is a dream, and two is like years ago that I had this dream. But I remember getting into an argument about him or with him, and I remember grabbing his face, and his face was like putty. It was so weird. And I woke up and I was so tense. My adrenaline was through the roof. I was so wired from adrenaline and I was upset the entire day. I couldn't shake it. It was like the worst nightmare I've ever had. And I've had nightmares like when I was really little, like being outside of my house and alone. I was really little, and then a car would pull up in front of my curb, and then a guy would walk up after me like regular. He would walk in a regular speed, and I would just be like, oh no, I'm not supposed to be near strangers. And it was daytime at first. All of a sudden it was nighttime, and he's walking normal speed up to me, and I'm trying to run for the door, and I can't run. I'm running, but I'm like running slower motion than he's walking towards me, and I'm trying to scream for my mom or my dad, and I can't scream. No volume is coming out of my mouth. And that was frightening. But this was more frightening because I was the monster in this one. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, I mean, isn't it? I mean, isn't that what the risk is? Really? I mean, when you, it's sort of like coming to terms with. I remember I opened myself up to talk to my dad again in different intervals of my life, just to try, well, not only to try again, just to see, because I think people can change, and you never know. But then also, I had to figure out how much of me was in there. So,
Yeah.
because what I hated doing was looking at myself and wondering, like, because you don't want to be the monster, and sometimes you see your dad. Sometimes you see yourself as your dad, and sometimes it's physical, and sometimes it's mental and situational, and you're like, fuck. You're like, go away, and you try to, you're going back to the drawing, it's like default value. You're just like, try to wash it off, and you can't fucking wash it off. It's who you are, and so there's this like, I'm part of that fucking monster. And it was like, okay, I got to understand this beast. And so I sort of exposed myself to him, in a very calculated sort of way to try to understand, like, because you talk to him. No one is going to know your dad better than you. You know what I mean? And there's that connection there that you just can't explain. And so it's like, you see yourself in certain things come out, and you're like, okay, there it is. And if you're really clinical about it, you can be like, okay, that. All right, this is what he does the same. The way he's thinking about it. All right, I think about it like that too. All right, this is I get from him. This is something new.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's coming to face with yourself as that fucking monster.
That's one of the things. That's actually the main reason I haven't talked to him. Going back to like tech lingo, I have to hard reset myself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are behaviors that he still does And I know that he still does it because I was at weddings that I have to deal with him, and family get-togethers that I've been avoiding family get-togethers. I've been avoiding my own family just to avoid him. I feel horrible because I miss my own family, and but like these behaviors would come up, and I just need to disconnect myself and just be my own. I have to develop my own person before I can even connect to him again. And I also, for himself, he needs to rely on himself rather than rely on other people relying on him.
Yeah,
And
that's
I need
important.
him to stop. I need him to stop, basically, before I can even entertain the thought of connecting with him again.
Yeah, well, having stipulations is something very, very rock solid to sort of like, this is the line that I'm standing on now. This is the line that you can't cross. Is
Yeah.
just so. I mean, anytime you're dealing with like an abusive person, it's like yeah. I mean, like the second you give them any room, that's it. That's it.
No, yeah.
I do with my sister is very much like my dad, and so but she has a more narcissistic side to her, and so I can kind of relate to that level of like, you know, as soon as they start their little games, it just gets right under your skin. You're just like, that's
Yeah.
don't stop right now. You know what I mean? And you can't
No,
like,
yeah.
how do you get them to stop being who they've known? This is all they've known. This is who they are. You know, like.
And that hints at another thing I'm really happy about that I probably wouldn't have if he wasn't my father. I see through bullshit. Yeah. I absolutely see through everybody's bullshit. I don't like being manipulated. I know when I'm being manipulated, and I stop them right there. I stop them immediately. I don't let them do anything. I don't let them get away with their bullshit. Mm-hmm. If they're manipulating me, if they're manipulating somebody else, that's one of the reasons I hate religion. Mm-hmm. It's manipulative. Mm-hmm. It's conniving. It is dipping into people's pockets, into their well-being, for manipulating people because they are weak. And I don't mean they're weak in the sense that they're weak people in general, but they're taking advantage of them at their weakest point, and they're finding their weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. And religion, manipulative people in general, they take advantage of people's weaknesses, and I hate that. That's why I got out of sales. I fucking hate it.
That's so true.
I'm good at sales too.
Yeah. Do you find yourself hating yourself as you're being really good at sales? It's just like, fuck you.
I hate it and I love it at the same time. It's like a love-hate relationship. Yeah. But yeah.
Would you have less trouble with religion if it moved back into the realm of allegory, if it moved back into the realm of fable? I feel like so much of our culture has been built around religion, Christianity especially, as sort of as it's a given that it's true, that there's some aspect of it that is true and real. So you're always sort of dealing with someone, and a lot of people kind of just know that it's a story, but there are too many influential people where this fight still has to be had, where they believe it is literally true. And I feel
that they perpetuate the belief, they have an interest in perpetuating the belief, even if they don't believe themselves.
Yeah, and
I honestly don't believe. I don't know if I believe in that Joel Osteen believes the crap he spews.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea at this point.
In order to get to a position like he's gotten to, or any of the top religious leaders, you have to be able to break down what it is you're saying. And why it's effective. You have to look at the why of things, and as soon as you start doing that, how do you shut it off? You can't. You know, like, it's not, from what I've found, as soon as I started asking why, that was fucking it. You know, so I don't know. I think I mean, I would guess they probably don't believe, because you can't start breaking things down and then I'm just gonna stop there and just, you know.
But to answer that question, like, would it be okay if it was fable? I mean, at that point, like, who cares? It's like Lord of the Rings at that point.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, cool stories are cool stories, no matter what they are. Like, I think the Bible is a very cool story. Both, you know, Old Testament, New Testament. There's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on in that, but you have to be batshit crazy to actually, not batshit crazy. There's a lot of smart people that believe this stuff, but you have to be disconnected from the reality around you to think that's anchored in it. And the problem I have with it more than anything, because when it all comes down to it, religion, I feel, at least now, I feel like religion, one, is a thing to get past the fear of dying, which is a huge thing for a lot of people. Nobody wants to die. I don't want to die. I know it's going to happen. I'm like kind of okay with it. I don't want it to happen. It's going to be really fucked when it happens. I feel really sad when other people die, but like, it's going to happen. You got to come to that realization. I want to get all the stuff I want to get done now. I'm taking advantage of this life I have. That's one of the things that religion tries to tackle is the fear of dying. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. You're going to live after you die. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's a little bit comforting. Like, I kind of wish I believed that sometimes, but I don't. It's because there's nothing, absolutely nothing tangible in reality that can show me that. You can't show me any evidence that will give me the assurance that I am going to live after I die. And something that I don't like doing is lying to myself. So I can't like just lie to myself and kind of like give myself this facade of like, oh, well, yeah, I'll just like lie to myself and try to believe it's true. Because then there's that doubt in my mind. Feels even worse. The other thing that I feel like religion is for is, especially in early times, is there's thought crime. There's laws and there's thought crime. And if people believe that what they're thinking, which is also some things that they're doing, they're thinking obviously more things than they're doing, but everything that they're doing is something that you're thinking. If you instill the idea of thought crime, you can control people, which, you know, yes. This a form of government. You don't want to, like, religion and politics. Religion is politics at that point.
Yeah. It's been engrossed in politics for so long that's sort of unavoidable.
Well, not even in the sense that there's like Republicans, Democrats, and there's the U.S. government. There's the English government. I'm talking specifically that religion as a whole is politics, because it is a form of government. It is government in itself. It's because back in Roman times, how are you going to enforce like people not to hurt people? Like, people back then when they're in charge, like, how do I do this? Like, I don't know, like, make them believe that like there's somebody looking at you when you're masturbating. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't touch your fucking dick.
Yeah. The thought crime aspect is.
He knows when I'm touching my dick. Oh no.
Yeah, he cares about what I'm eating. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. He knows when I thought about my neighbor's wife. Oh no.
No, spiritual warfare. That's the concept of spiritual warfare, and that there is this untouchable, unseen, invisible sort of world that contains all the power, the holy power, right, that created the world. Under the surface of reality, there are spiritual beings fighting a war for your soul. And where religion is at its absolute worst is when they get into your head. And I remember being absolutely terrified as a child, even as a toddler. Like before school, I remember specifically, but like just all my entire life, I have memories of being absolutely terrified of the thought that either Satan could read my mind or God could read my mind,
Yeah.
one or the other. And what can come from that is this sort of like, well, if you've lived with an abusive father, you know exactly what that's like then, and you don't even have to have had experienced the being afraid of the thought crime. It's walking on pins and needles.
Oh yeah.
It's tiptoeing on eggshells everywhere, but doing it mentally, and constantly, like, a thought pops in your head and it's just like, is that a thought that's gonna send me to hell, like.
No, yeah. And something else that really stuck out with me, this is back when I started gaining my bearings for being an atheist, and this is a little when I was more adamant about it. I was in the car with my two friends. One of them, don't know if I consider him my friend anymore. But we're in the car going to get food, and I forget what the point of the conversation is. Oh, what happened? I remember what spawned the conversation, but it's irrelevant. But we're talking about going to hell, and I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't see why you think it's so important. Like, look, I'm an atheist, but at least I'm being a good person in the world around me. I'm doing if I'm doing and being what you say, what your person in your book, which I may think is fictional, but even if you think it's not, if I'm doing what he is preaching, which is, be good to your neighbor and everything, and be good to the people around you, be charitable, and that's what I truly believe as a person. Even without that, that means at least I'm going to go to heaven, right? It's like, well, no. Like, wait, what? And I never knew this before. I never even thought, because I never really was super religious. I'd never really looked into this stuff. And I'm like, what? And he's like, no, you go to hell. It's something I have to live with, that you have to go to hell. I'm like, what? I'm going to hell? You think I'm going to hell? Well, yeah, you don't accept Christ as your Lord and Savior. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me, man.
Yeah.
You're so daft. Get out of your fucking head. And so, like, the thought that no matter how good you are, if you don't accept their Lord and Savior, you go to hell. That's just fucking bizarre. You can play by the rules, but if you're not playing their game, you're done.
Yeah, it can be really tricky to navigate around as soon as you believe that it's all real, and all sorts of problems happen. It's just, and it just goes to show you what is true. I'm not an objectivist, but I read Ayn Rand, and one of the things that I took from her that she said that I think really applies here is that there are no paradoxes in nature. Plain and simple, a paradox can't exist in nature. Two contradictory things can't exist alongside of each other. And I was like, that's true. She said.
I don't think that's objectivism, though. That's just reality.
No, and Ayn Rand, in Ayn Randian fashion, stole all the good shit from everybody else. So who knows if it was even her who first said that? But it's true, and that it goes to show you what happens to people when you try to live your life based on something that is irreconcilable with reality, is because paradoxes can't exist in nature. The human element, the human animal, being forced into this ideology and this paradigm for acting, it doesn't fit to their nature, and because it doesn't fit to their nature, all these problems emerge out of that. And it's like, okay, this doesn't reconcile with reality, and that's how you know.
The other thing that is really interesting about faith. It requires a lot of maintenance. Like with Scientology, like if you watch Joe Rogan, right?
Oh yeah.
Something they do with Scientology, there's like, I think it's weekly or daily or something that they have to like go do meetings and go to the center, and basically what it is maintaining, like, from an outsider perspective, is literally maintaining your faith. When you confront somebody, like, I hate to bring up my mom to put her on the spot about this, but like, I talked to her specifically because she's the most open, and I like the poke, like, I like the poke and prod. I like asking these questions, and I like to see what these reactions are and what kind of things provokes them, what way the reaction unfolds, and try to piece everything together, try to, like, put together this puzzle in my head. And something I notice is not just with her, not just with but with a lot of other people. But I sorry, Mom, I usually was a kind of like a lab rat for everything else. But thank you at the same time. It's like they retreat, and they're confronted with something that contradicts, they don't want the paradox. They want their reality. If somebody believes the whole Bible and they believe it full on, when they're presented the evidence of the very blaringly clear evidence of evolution, the very clear, blaringly clear evidence that, yeah, we can go to space, there's no firmament, the very clear evidence that no, the Earth is not flat, no, they reject the other reality of it, the possible realities, which is actually reality, and they stick with their version of reality. And that is so fascinating to me, how very smart people, very, very intelligent people, my friend that told me that I was going to go to hell, he was very smart. He liked a lot of sciencey things. He liked a lot of very intriguing things, but like this, he's very, very, very Christian, and that alters with his outlook of reality, and it's so fascinating. Very tragic because I lost a friend over it, but like the conflict of interest, we would just be in the same room, and like I'd be like, hey, because it doesn't really bother me that he believes, but it obviously bothers him, because I would be at like an art show, and I'm like, hey man, how's it going? And he just like looks at me, and his wife, who's also super religious, he's like, he does like one of those, like, you can probably picture the face I just made.
Oh yeah.
And there's like one of those very Christian smiles, and kind of just like, hey, how's it going? And then leaves, and just doesn't want to talk to me. And it's like, oh, you're like a completely different person. It's amazing how just because I don't believe in what you believe, that makes so much of a difference to you. Like, it blows my mind.
It really does. And being in Michigan, I meet a lot of people who they like, they'll tell me like, you're the first atheist I've known. And I'm like, well, statistically, probably not. I'm the first one who's willing to talk about it. But I remind myself on a regular basis how fucking lucky I am, because there are places even in America where, it is dangerous. You go to
Alabama, you're fucking probably gonna get hanged.
Good luck. Yeah.
You might be lucky if you get hanged.
Yeah. Run out of town, and they will run you out if you are, of color, of gay, or riding the line, or an atheist, or a Muslim, or anything different. It's like, good luck. But atheists especially are like especially hated. It's like they feel justified in like, oh, you can be tortured.
You know what? I was thinking about this recently too. You know why I think they hate, like, religious people hate atheists the most? At least if, let's say, as a Christian talking about thinking about Jewish person, or even a Muslim, even though right now they hate Muslims more than anything. Well, not, I don't think atheists. At least they oh yeah, they believe in God, but I think they just have the story wrong.
Yes, I've heard I can't tell you how
At
many times
least
I've fucking heard that.
And with atheists, it's not just the story is wrong. It's a story that is so different that it says, no, there's not even anything connected. Yeah. And that frightens them. That scares the living shit out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think then the reversion starts to happen, where it's like they're looking for you to give them an origin that has a definitive shape. It has a definition, and you can't. And so it's easier to dismiss, because it's like, well, we can only go so far back. This is what we know. This is what's known currently. You know,
they ask you for all the answers, and like, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know that? Yeah. How do you know that? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but I know what I know, and what I know conflicts with what you're saying.
Yeah, and more importantly, saying I don't know is way better than saying I believe in this thing that's paradoxical. I believe in this thing that's prone to infinite regression, because that was one of the things that caught me up, was like the series, as soon as you believe that the Bible is literal, a series of infinite regressions can pop up, rear their ugly head in various places, and one of them just being the everything needs to be created, but who created God sort of infinite regress. And it's like, well, okay, you know, if you can't answer the riddles to your own faith,
well, obviously God created himself. How can you not figure that out?
Yeah, right. But then here's what's funny. Something has always been in their mind. God has always been. But if then they ask you, well, what was around before the Big Bang? And it's like, well, we don't know, but likely a giant ball of mass.
Well, I think they came to a more recent possible conclusion that the universe has always existed. It's just been expanding into itself, as weird as that sounds. I don't really understand enough about it to preach it, so I don't really. I've learned to kind of stay away from that argument.
Yeah.
All I know is I see the world around me. It completely, very aggressively conflicts with all those spiritual kind of outlooks of life.
Yeah, I think that Buddhists were the closest ones to get it right, where they took a step back. Now it's still a religion, and they're still prone. They're prone to the problems of all religions, and as far as that goes. But like theosophically, they're like, look, it all happened. It's all true.
Yeah.
They're like, science, it's true. It doesn't change the Buddha story, right? Jesus, he exists. He exists. Buddha went up and talked to Jesus, actually. We have ancient script that show, like, Mahayanas. When I studied with Mahayana Buddhists for a while, they're like, look, this Buddha went up to Jesus. And I was like, oh, so Jesus is true. Yeah, Muhammad, it's all fucking true.
Well, I think they tried doing that in the Ancient Aliens series.
Yes.
The spaceship, it picked up Moses when he went up on the hill, and it picked up Jesus, and it picked up Buddha, and all these historical figures, and Muhammad also. It picked them all up, and that's why when Moses came back down the hill, he was all gray, because it was a lot of time passing. And I'm like, well, what kind of? And
it's just wacky. It's just fucking wacky. So wacky. I
should rewatch that series, because that's just hilarious. That's a hilarious series.
The world is already too mysterious and too interesting enough without having to inject all this extra bullshit. It's just so. Well, we're at about 2.5 hours now, and I'm getting close to being out of memory here. So this has been fantastic.
Yeah, maybe we'll
Thank
continue it another time when
yeah,
we'll
thank you.
get our bearings and shit. And
Yeah,
yeah,
you can keep going. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and
no, yeah, it's fun.
where can people go to find you?
Oh, I got my website, www.yavorski, YAV as in Victor, ORSKI.com. And then also, you look up my name on social media and you'll find me. And
All right.
if it's social media, I probably have it, Twitter, Instagram, whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well then, that's we're wrapping this up, and it's been pretty good, and hope to have you on again.
Yeah.
So, all right, we will
Sweet.
talk to you guys later.
See you later.